animal welfare. All I can say is that every time a big truck drives by with pigs inside of it, I do cry, and they look very sad.
Can you tell me what the Farm Bill is?
Nope. Farm Bill? Yeah, nope.
Animal welfare? Well, I assume that's when an animal family is below the poverty line and receives additional support from the government. So the Farm Bill is the man who has worked on the farm for 80 years.
Tell me, what do you know about Proposition 12 in California?
Oh, nothing. I know nothing about that. I'm so sorry. Animal welfare, like how they take care of the animals. You know, agricultural and food things.
I don't know what the Farm Bill is.
Hello and welcome to the Contemporary Issues in Agriculture podcast, or CAPS for short. I'm your co-host, Sydney Schnorr.
And I'm your co-host, Jessica Rodman. Let's start with a few quick introductions.
As I said, I'm Sydney. I am a PhD student in the Agricultural Education and Studies Department at Iowa State University. I'm here doing some research in agriculture myself, which puts me in a unique position to host this podcast.
And I'm Jessica. I am also in the Ag Eds department here at Iowa State. I'm working on my master's degree in agricultural education, and I'm pretty excited to hear what these students have to share with us. Here on this podcast, we will be bringing up a variety of agricultural issues from within the industry. These issues have been brought up by students, and they will be asking real questions of real people in the industry, having some good conversations.
Yeah, and today we will be speaking to Dr. MK, the head of operations, and we'll also be hearing from a few students who will be appearing in other episodes. And we'll get to talk to them about the process that they're going through, and it'll be interesting to hear some of those perspectives before we get into their episodes, their more content episodes. So with that, we'll turn it over to Hannah Everhart to take over.
I'm Hannah Everhart. I'm currently a junior studying Ag Communications and International Ag. So this podcast series is all about the different podcast projects that the Ag Eds 463 course completed as their final project. The purpose of the project itself was to address hot topics and just new and upcoming issues within the agricultural industry, sit down and be able to have a conversation with all of the different opposing sides on these topics, whether it was GMOs or the different aspects of the beef cattle industry. So you're going to hear a variety of different topics within this series. But to kick us off, let's hear from the professor who teaches this course, Dr. MK.
Hello, everyone. My name is Fali Masambuka Kanchewa. I know that is so mouthful, so I always tell people to say, just call me Dr. MK. So as you can see, you can hear, I have an accent, means that I'm not originally from the US. So I'm originally from Malawi. I know most of you don't know where that is. That's Southeast Africa. And yeah, I came here for my master's, which I did at Purdue University. My PhD I did at the Ohio State University, and now I am an assistant professor here at Iowa State University teaching agriculture communication.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that introduction. So I think we're just going to go ahead and jump right in. And could you tell me what exactly the project is in your own words and what that means to you?
Yeah, so this project, the official name of this podcast is actually CAP, which is Contemporary Issues in Agriculture, but the full name of the class is Communicating Contemporary Issues in Agriculture. So this project really is more about making students to be comfortable to just talk or listen to people who are holding different views. So I know that you're asking me, like, what was your inspiration behind this? My inspiration really was after talking to so many students when they're coming into the agriculture communication program. Most of them say, oh, we want to advocate for agriculture. People out there don't know about agriculture. They don't understand. Like, they have all these questions that, like, people just out there don't know more about agriculture and they are uneducated. They need to be taught what is right. They think in a different way. They think in a way that is not right. So that really got me thinking, and it also made me think more because when you think about even the whole idea about agriculture communication at inception, what was the idea behind it? It was all about thinking of the audience that they don't know. We need to educate them. We need to tell them what agriculture is about. We need to tell them that time, days back, it was the farmers, right? We need to inform them about the new technologies that we're developing at the university. But now, looking at the US and how the landscape has changed. Our audience is no longer the farmers. We're also thinking about the normal everyday to day person who are kind of disconnected from agriculture. But unlike in the past, where the university, the land grant university, was the source of information, about agriculture. So it was like, okay, this is one way type of information, and we control the narrative from the university. But now we don't control the narrative. We have so many sources with advancements in technology. Everybody can say anything at any time, And now with even AI, things are more complicated. They can even provide evidence, right? Which makes it like, oh my gosh, what's going on? So we, I feel like it's now past the time where we just have to look at our role as educating the public. I feel like we have to step back and listen. So for me, this project was like trying to help the students to step back and listen to those people who have different views than them, those people who have questions about agriculture. Where are these questions coming from? Why are they thinking in this way? So that way, when you learn, when you understand where somebody's coming from, when you're developing the message, you have the person in mind and what issues they're facing in your mind as you're developing the message. And that way you easily reach to them and address those needs.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's super important, especially within the agricultural industry today. We see a lot of, misinformation with social media. Like you said, anybody can make anything and share anything. And there's really no way of, you know, seeing if it's true or not without talking to your local producers, talking to your experts within those fields. So that kind of leads me to my next question is why did you decide on a podcast? Out of every means of communication, why a podcast?
It's a good question, actually. So I decided on a podcast because I'd been listening to so many podcasts in agriculture. So I don't want to mention titles because they're not bad podcasts; they're good podcasts. But what I discovered was like there's so many people coming up with podcasts, but there's always information that is from one side. It's either I like the agriculture industry and I'm gonna be promoting one view. So all the podcasts that I was listening to is like they're promoting one view. Where there are other platforms, yes, there was Twitter, but it was like, no, for me, Twitter is like too much noise. It's now X, right? I should be correcting myself. X, there's too much noise. When I looked at Facebook, I was like, not everybody's on Facebook. I did some studies about like who accesses Facebook and who is in listening to who is talking to who. It's like Facebook is more like people are restricted within the groups, and it depends on where you are. There's multiple identities on Facebook. If I belong to a church group, my identity there is going to be different versus seeing me in another group. So I did research that I discovered that people have multiple identities. And then when I looked at a podcast, I was like, no, there are identities, but people choose what they want to identify with. So the people are producing podcasts right now in agriculture, most of them, and I need to be corrected on this. Like from my research, I discovered that they have identified themselves as maybe somebody who's supporting the agriculture industry or somebody who's against the agriculture industry, and their information is all about that side. So I was looking for this podcast to be a space where it's going to be a conversation. So I like the conversational part of the podcast because people are coming together, sharing their opinions from different sides. So not only one side, but like, I like this or I don't like it, and this is why I don't like it.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, that kind of covered my next question on, what you think the most beneficial part to a podcast is, especially with, just being able to sit down and have a civil conversation. Um, and I think it's really nice that you included that part in the project where, students, they had to go out and talk to people who maybe disagreed with them or experts who believe something that's completely different. I think that's something that needs to be done more often, and this is a great place to start it. Um, so I guess I kind of asked this earlier, but were there any podcasts that you listened to like just to help in creating the guidelines for this project?
Yes, there are so many. So that's a very interesting question because I was like, it was a mixture of like stealing, I should say, not stealing exactly, I should say learning what they're doing right and copying and kind of modifying it, but also like checking like what are they doing wrong that I don't want to do. So like all those things came into play, and I have to say this is the first really actually I don't even know I should call it season or series. I don't know. I'm still figuring this out. But this is the first time that this class is going to be doing this project. And I'm so sure that so many things are going to learn because are going to change. Because when I was listening to this podcast and seeing what they're doing wrong and what they're doing right and experimenting on this one, I don't know how this is going to come out. So I would say I'm continuing to listen to more podcasts. And there are some podcasts that when I was developing the class were not out there. There's another one that just came up like 8 months ago. I just discovered it even in class. When I was teaching the students, they told me, I was like, what? Know about that podcast. So, like, I know that as we continue, we'll continue improving and maybe the guidelines will continue to change. But one thing I know for sure that won't change is really having diverse views. No matter what, I feel that's going to be the only thing that this podcast is going to be standing out for because it is really that place that we're trying to make sure that we have all the voices heard and also teaching the students to listen. Even if you hold a different view, listening is so important because we are living in a world where we don't want to listen to each other. So for me, that's the main thing that it doesn't matter what can change in the guidelines, but some things are going to stay the same. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I definitely can see that within pretty much any aspect of the world. I mean, you can see that in just small trivial debates or, presidential debates. Um, anywhere and anywhere in between, really. Um, and you kind of mentioned how there's been a lot of trial and error with this project, seeing as this is the first official class project that we've done for this class. Um, is there anything, or I guess, what is the main thing that you foresee changing for future years about this project?
The main thing that I really foresee changing about the future of this project is really trying to incorporate AI
Mhm.
and making the students see how best we can use that in the project, not wanting to alter people's words or whatever it is. But like, I just feel like there is the potential that moving forward, we can take advantage of AI. Like maybe when the students were thinking about, for example, questions they should ask, I worked on with them, like trying to develop the questions, but I'm thinking that maybe moving forward, we can incorporate AI and see like, there's some of the questions that maybe AI can help them generate. But also moving forward, for me, when I'm thinking about incorporating AI in this class, it's beyond just saying like, okay, they're using it as a tool to help them, but also as a tool to help them reflect on their learning. So for example, when I told you to say maybe using AI to generate the questions. So what will be happening is like, okay, we'll have AI generated questions and then have them like ask each other like a more kind of podcast production before the final one. And see the difference, like, okay, are the questions generated by AI all accurate? Do they really cover all aspects of life? Because we can't run away from AI right now. And sometimes with maybe students can feel like it's an easier way to do things. But when we are in the actual space to say, if you just rely on AI, can you really get everything that you want? One of the things that I feel is so important for this class is really getting to understand emotional intelligence. So I'm like trying to make the students understand if we just use AI, how are we pulling out that aspect of you being emotionally intelligent? You can have those right questions, yes, but as you're talking to the person and you're not paying attention to what they're going through or how they're expressing themselves, because at that point AI cannot help you, right?
Yeah.
It has to be you. So like trying to teach them also to say yes, you feel like it's easy for you to just copy and use AI, but there's something that's missing with the AI that you still need to develop those skills and read when people are speaking. Are they getting angry? Are they getting excited? And follow up with those questions that in that moment, if all the questions like AI generated, it can't help you develop a question in the moment, but you have to be in the process and uh, immerse yourself in that conversation to be able to pick those cues and make changes as you move
Yeah.
forward. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Yeah, I think
Mm-hmm.
that's interesting that you brought up the incorporation of AI within this course. I feel like, a lot of times as a college student, I see professors getting kind of turned away from, especially like AI, like Chat GPT, not wanting to use it as much. So I love that you want to incorporate that more into this course. That's something that I think is very unique. And I haven't seen it done much. I know some classes incorporate it, but
this is the first professor that I've sat down one-on-one with saying that, this is something that I want to incorporate in the future. Um, Now, of course, I have to ask one fun question for you. So obviously, all of the students, they picked all different topics, and most of them were personal or connected to them in some way. So if you were to do this project, what would your topic be and why?
Oh my goodness. I can't believe you're even asking me that. Okay. It's so being a researcher is really hard when you're asked to say, what will you pick? Because like my mind goes, oh, what am I finding from my research? I mean, I'm trying to think, oh my gosh, be the best topic I would pick. I would say I would pick something that deals with perceptions about GMOs. So I'll talk about the GMOs and I'll go around asking people, those who don't like GMOs, like what is it that makes them like have negative perceptions on GMOs? Where is that coming from? Because from the research that I've been doing, I've discovered that when people think about scientific innovations and technologies, there's always a reason why they feel the way they feel. Of late, I've stumbled through this belief about moral character, that there are some other people who believe that moral character is an entity, and some other people who believe that moral character is incremental. So for somebody who thinks that moral character is an entity, if they had previous experience that were negative, chances of them to believe that somebody who looks like that person, or for example if a scientist did something that they know, maybe from somebody they know, from somebody that is close to them, that was negative, they say that they cannot trust scientists anymore. So if they believe that moral character is in an entity, it doesn't matter what discovery scientists come up with. They are stuck on that.
Yeah.
But if they believe that moral character is incremental, they believe that, a scientist may have made a mistake, but maybe there's some other good scientists out there. So I can
Yeah.
give them a chance so they can still change their mind. So I would love to hear from people like especially their thoughts of like if they don't believe that GMOs are good, consuming GMOs is good for them. Where is this coming from? Does it have any connection to their belief about moral character? Those who are for GMOs, where is this coming from? Like, why do they have this open mind? Where is it coming from? Is it from their experiences, or are they just like people who are living out there? So that would be the topic I think I'll be interested to
Okay.
know from different perspectives.
Yeah, that's really cool. I know one of the groups in our class is doing a topic over GMOs. And they kind of did that field research. They went out to one of the local spots on campus that's pretty heavily, um, heavy traffic area, and they went ask people, do you even know what a GMO is? And um, from my conversation with them, they said that there was quite a few people that they had no idea what a GMO even was. So I think that's super, super interesting that that's the topic that you pick. And we'll definitely hear more from one of those students later. But thank you for coming on the podcast today. I really do appreciate that and giving us a rundown over what exactly the project was. And yeah, do you have any closing comments for us? Anything that you'd like to leave us with?
Oh, yeah, sure. So please give us a chance, listen to the podcast, support the students, and give us feedback. We really value your feedback. Like I said, this is the first time that you are working on this project, so we would really appreciate your feedback. And if there are some of you out there that you feel like, oh, I mean, honestly, I have this expertise, I have this opinion, I want to be featured in this podcast, feel free and reach out to us. If we have students working on that project, we'll definitely have you on board. So support us and ask us if you have any questions, and there'll be more details about how you can email or ask us questions in the link that's going to be provided in the description of this podcast. Thank you so much, Hannah. I
Yeah.
appreciate your talking to me.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. MK.
All right, so this is the part in the podcast where we're going to completely switch gears. Um, you all just heard from Dr. MK. She was the professor of this course. And I think she did a really great job for this course being completely experimental this semester on getting it up and running. But now we're going to hear some students' perspectives and see, what exactly were their thinking processes? What were their ideas when they first initially came into this podcast. So I'm going to have them introduce themselves and then we're going to go ahead and get started.
Hello, I'm Jillian Woodall. I'm currently a senior and I'll be graduating in this upcoming May. My major is actually journalism and mass communications, but I have an agricultural education minor, so I'm super excited what's to come in the future with that. I have enjoyed taking contemporary issues in agriculture. I was excited to take it because I was able to learn what's going on in the world today, and then with those hot topics, being able to create projects off of them or even discussions within my class.
Yeah, I'm Sophie Adams. I'm a senior in agriculture communication. Um, and I guess I enrolled in 463. One, obviously, it's required to graduate with the agriculture communications major, but also I didn't have a lot of ag com classes that I had taken. With the way that the major was previously set up, there wasn't a lot of ag com classes, so regardless of required or not, I was excited to take it.
And my name is Kesley Holgraver. I'm a junior here at Iowa State, majoring in ag communications, and I'm originally from eastern Iowa. Grew up in a diversified grain and livestock operation, fell in love with agriculture, but through my FFA experience and when I was younger, I noticed there was a lot of people in my class that didn't really understand agriculture or were a little confused on the topic. So when I saw this course about contemporary issues, and not only was it required, but it really did interest me, learning about the issues in agriculture and how we can better communicate those to the public to bridge that gap between consumers and producers.
Alrighty, so let's just go ahead and jump right in. The first question I have for you guys, just to kick off this podcast, is what were your general feelings like towards the project initially? I know Sophie said that this was an experimental course, and this is something that's completely brand new. So how did you feel learning that we were going to do a podcast at the end?
It was a little daunting at first, I think, just because, like me personally, the only podcasting experience I had had was in 311, and that was just recording a conversation. So it was very casual, not a lot of editing or anything going into that. So it was kind of daunting, especially with the fact that um, they wanted us to have three different guests. Initially, like it just felt like, oh, that's a lot. That's a lot of like schedules to line up, and honestly, now that we're like at the tail end of the project, it's not as bad. I think it looks a lot more scary than it is.
Um, I was a little hesitant at first when we were told we were going to create a podcast, but I was super excited because podcasts are a new form of communication. I feel like it's within the last 5 years has been really taking off, I guess. And so being able to actually create an understand the behind the scenes of what it takes for a podcast was interesting. Throughout creating the podcast, I would say the most difficult part was probably finding speakers that was related to your topics and then making sure like you had both sides of the stories. Um, but overall, I've enjoyed it, and I think it's a great opportunity for students who are wanting to know more about ag communications.
I was gonna opposite. I was excited. I was excited for the process itself. Podcasts have really taken off. I mean, I think a couple of years ago, I wouldn't even really know what a podcast was. I wouldn't listen to one. I'd listen to music. But it's just another exciting new way you can communicate. And as communicators, learning that aspect and then doing all the technical stuff behind it, that was super interesting. And then also being able to dive deep into a topic, have those conversations, and then if you have two people that disagree, how are you going to mitigate that conversation? So that part was a little daunting, but overall, I was super excited to, go hands in and see how it all works and produce a podcast. I've never done that before.
Yeah, awesome. Alrighty, so obviously, you had brought up the fact that there's different topics for each different podcast. Can you guys tell me a little bit about what your topic is and how that connects to you personally? I know that's something that a lot of people chose to do, was something that they had experienced or just were very passionate about. So yeah, tell me about your guys' topics.
So my partner and I chose the topic of carbon capture. We chose this topic just because we were both from a row crop farm, and so this is kind of evolving over the next few years. Personally, it kind of connects to me because I've had conversations with my father and just kind of seeing how carbon capture has affected like our personal farms and like his intake on it. But it hasn't really affected me personally.
Me and my partner are doing our topic on GMOs, and just kind of the debate around them. I actually came from a livestock background. Not even, I came from the equine industry, so the crazy people in the livestock. But and so I didn't grow up with a lot of like connections or knowledge about GMOs, but I did work for Corteva this last summer, and so kind of got a deep dive into all of that science. And so it was just really cool. And like even me, who's someone involved in agriculture, didn't know a lot about it. So kind of gave me a passion for just kind of educating people around me because if I don't know about it and I'm connected with ag, people who aren't connected about ag are going to have absolutely no clue. So. It's kind of how I got into my topic.
My topic, it was kind of difficult to choose what we wanted to do because my partner and I, we both had a long list of stuff we could cover, but it really came down to what we were both passionate about and kind of our experiences in the agriculture industry as well. And Ashlyn and I both kind of grew up with a different agricultural background. She grew up on the show side of the industry, so she raised animals for the show industry and traveled all across the country to various shows to show cattle and goats, where I was on the other side of the spectrum. I grew up, my whole backyard is feedlots. So instead of just a couple cattle in the background to show, it was hundreds that we raised to finish for market. So we kind of wanted to have that debate to talk to other professionals in both sides of the industry and see what their thoughts were and really mitigate that conversation so everybody can hear about both sides and not so much which one's better, but what what ones provide the most for youth and what ones are the most exciting and people are passionate about. So that's how we chose our topics.
I think it's great that you took a unique perspective on the show cattle versus, just market cattle, because that's something that people really don't think about. But myself coming from a more show cattle, like smaller feedlot type operation, I understand like where you guys are coming from with that. So obviously you guys had some feelings about how the podcast was initially. How are you feeling now? Like as the semester is coming closer to an end and you're starting to put everything together. Like, are you feeling a little bit better about it or
Yeah, it's definitely less daunting once you get into it. And it's definitely a lot more fun. Uh, I am really excited. I still have one more conversation to go for my podcast, and so I'm really excited for that conversation. But it's been really fun, like kind of not only having the conversations, but also like learning how to work with audio and like learning how to edit and that kind of stuff because I don't necessarily have a whole lot of experience in that. And so it's really fun to have this as a project to kind of tinker around with this technology and figure out like how things work. And um, so it's definitely fun, and I'm excited to see the final project at this point. So.
Yeah, and then on my sides of things, I don't know, I didn't really know how I felt about the podcast at the start, but and having it at the end of the year, I figured I wasn't ready for that but when you look at it, it's a great capstone for the class. We spent class periods prior to this learning about active listening, and that is crucial in a podcast. And we learned about crisis communication, so if someone or how to mitigate those conversations that you're having with your person you're interviewing. So we're kind of using all the skills we learned and talked about throughout the course at the end. So I thought it was a great capstone, good way to end the semester.
I would say it's definitely been a challenge, but I've enjoyed doing it and kind of learning about creating a podcast. Overall, I'm kind of at the point of like just putting it all together and kind of meshing it all to make it flow. So I'm excited to see what the ending product will turn out to be. In the future, I hope Dr. Fowley keeps this key project in place because I think it is a challenge, but as you go into the real world, like this is a project you would potentially be doing in a career path, and then being able to add on to it. So it's a good like foundation.
there was definitely some challenges that you guys ran into? What would you say that the biggest challenge was, and what's one thing that you would change about your project?
Change about my project, I think, would be to one, just get on it a little bit earlier. The project was introduced pretty early into into the semester, but I feel like a lot of us kind of pushed it back until the end of the semester, just because there wasn't a lot of like milestones that you had to hit as the course went on, and so. Uh, I think personally for me, I would have gotten started a little bit earlier and given myself a good amount of time that I could have potentially added another guest or done something of diving deeper into the topic. And so, but that's just personally, I guess.
Personally, for mine, after doing some of our interviews, we realized our topic is more, it's a very conversational topic. There's not a lot of like evidence that goes into supporting like facts and stuff. It's very much so a debate and just a casual debate you can have between people in the agricultural industry. And I wish we could have added another aspect. I don't know what that aspect, I've been thinking about it for like the past week if I could still add it to it now. But another aspect to get more of like more professional point of view to it, if that makes sense, or get more or another side of it, or someone from the consumer side, like what do they think about the show industry? What do they think about this? But that would be something I changed. I've been thinking about it. I don't know what it would be, but it's something.
What would you guys say was the biggest challenge then?
I think for me, my podcast, the first part of it, we went up to like random students in the Memorial Union, asking them like about GMOs, if they even knew about them. And that was the hardest part, I think, just because cold calling your peers in a public setting can be a little scary, especially when you're walking up with like a mic to record them. But we got the hang of it. It wasn't bad. It was just a little daunting, especially because the MU has a lot of students that aren't in ag. And so some of our answers were a little surprising that we got when we did that. So,
Yeah, and something that was challenging on Ashlyn and I's podcast is we both came in with those different perspectives and different beliefs. So then when we were interviewing someone, you know, with the opposite belief of us, and you just I don't know, you kind of listen to it, and you're like, uh-oh, that's not what I think. And but it's something that we learned in class, you know, how to, you know, be able to still have those conversations even if you do have a different perspective, and how to be less biased as possible. And yeah, so that was one of the challenges that we had, but it was a growing challenge that we were able to learn from and grow from and become better communicators because of it.
Yeah, I'm glad that you guys, were able to talk about your challenges with this. I think that there's a lot of room to grow within this project itself, but also the class definitely helped. I feel like we covered, numerous different topics that you could have chosen from, and even you and Ashlyn, you didn't choose a topic that was particularly covered, so
hmm
that was something that was pretty unique and cool. If you were to change your topic, what would it be and why?
um, this question is actually not hard for me. I think I would definitely go into a topic based on like the rodeo industry and like the animal welfare based around that. I grew up rodeoing, and it's a pretty controversial um, activity, sport, whatever you want to label it as, especially with all the social media these days. You get a video into the wrong hands and it can go viral for all the wrong reasons. And so I'm really, really passionate about the rodeo industry. I'm president of the rodeo club here at Iowa State, and help put on a rodeo every year. And so I'm really, really just passionate about like people knowing that rodeo is safe and like it's a fun sport and like um we're not animal abusers, and all that kind of stuff. So I think it'd be something that I would definitely want to dive into if I had a chance to do this podcast again.
I think I would probably choose something along the lines of animal welfare just because it's always been a hot topic and it's always evolving. The Farm Bill has talked about it, and we also like discussed that module within class. So just kind of touching base on that and learning like both the pros and the cons of animal welfare, and if we were able to interview like an expert or someone within legislation, that would also give us another view at what animal welfare is and what's kind of going on in the world right now.
For me, well, I would change it to I'm actually kind of sad that we already had our podcast topic picked out before I came across this topic. We did it when we do our current events every morning before class. We talked about how Syngenta had to sell a lot of land. I can't remember what state it was that they had to sell a lot of land because Syngenta is owned, or I think it's half owned maybe, by people from China. And since they're not, American, their land is China, so they had to sell it all. And that would be an interesting topic to talk about, see what people think. Like, do you think they should have done that? Do you think they could have kept it? And especially because Syngenta is such a big company and it's going to maybe cause a lot of problems with other states. And it's just a big conversation that's happening right now. And it's something I wish that I could have learned about earlier. But I don't know how I could have done that, but it would have been a very interesting podcast.
Yeah, yeah, those are definitely great topics to talk about. I know animal welfare is always an up and coming hot topic that you, again, kind of like with GMOs, you see it quite often in the news, whether that's, about the meat packing side of things, rodeo, or just the general livestock production in general. And I am going to have to agree with you, Kesley. That topic would be very, very interesting to learn more about. That is something that got brought up in our current events in the middle of making our podcast. So yeah, I kind of agree. I wish that one would have came up a little sooner.
I know, dang it, yeah.
Yeah.
You could always ask if we can do another podcast for extra
Oh,
credit.
there you go.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Thank you to Hannah and Dr. MK for explaining the premise of the podcast and giving a great overview of what we're trying to communicate here. It's really important to discuss multiple facets of agricultural issues from all sides and develop those communication skills related to having difficult conversations, especially with different ideas that can be hard to articulate with all different sides and different
Perspectives.
different perspectives. Everyone's got different perspectives here.
Right, I agree. I think it's really important that we learn as students, especially, to be able to have those conversations. And I just want to thank our students and Dr. MK again for sharing their ideas in this podcast and laying some of the groundwork for our future episodes. It sounds like they've learned a lot through the production of this podcast. They're getting some good communication skills, and all these things are going to be really necessary for the future of the agricultural industry. We're going to have some pretty heavy-hitting and controversial episodes to come, but I think the conversation will be really good.
Yeah, it's really exciting to hear what they're going to have to say about that. Here at the Contemporary Issues in Agriculture podcast, we would like to thank you all for tuning into this episode and highly encourage you to listen again. Send this to friends, family members, send us some emails, give us feedback, comments, all that. And we will see you again next time on CAP.